Welcome to Module 2, Service versus Experience. Before we get started, I'd like you to watch this video. Some of you may have seen it. It's been watched millions of times on YouTube. It's a long video. It's about 10 minutes. But I really believe it is the structure or the umbrella under which every one of us should be running our business. That's how important it is. So let's watch this and we'll see what you think.
How do you explain when things don't go as we assume? Or better, how do you explain when others are able to achieve things that seem to defy all of the assumptions? For example, why is Apple so innovative? Year after year after year after year, they're more innovative than all their competition. And yet, they're just a computer company. They're just like everyone else. They have the same access to the same talent, the same agencies, the same consultants, the same media. Then why is it that they seem to have something different? Why is it that Martin Luther King led the civil rights movement? He wasn't the only man who suffered in a pre-civil rights America, and he certainly wasn't the only great orator of the day. Why him? And why is it that the Wright brothers were able to figure out controlled powered manned flight when there were certainly other teams who were better qualified, better funded, and they didn't achieve powered manned flight, and the Wright brothers beat them to it? There's something else at play here. About 3.5 years ago, I made a discovery, and this discovery profoundly changed my view on how I thought the world worked, and it even profoundly changed the way in which I operate in it. As it turns out, there's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this: we make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat screen TVs. They've been making flat screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. And Dell came out with MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products, and nobody bought one. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer company? But we do it every day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The goal is not to do business with everybody who needs what you have. The goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe. Here's the best part. None of what I'm telling you is my opinion. It's all grounded in the tenets of biology, not psychology, biology. If you look at a cross-section of the human brain, looking from the top down, what you see is the human brain is actually broken into three major components that correlate perfectly with the golden circle. Our newest brain, our Homo sapien brain, our neocortex, corresponds with the what level. The neocortex is responsible for all of our rational and analytical thought and language. The middle two sections make up our limbic brains, and our limbic brains are responsible for all of our feelings, like trust and loyalty. It's also responsible for all human behavior, all decision-making, and it has no capacity for language. In other words, when we communicate from the outside in, yes, people can understand vast amounts of complicated information like features and benefits and facts and figures. It just doesn't drive behavior. When we communicate from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that controls behavior, and then we allow people to rationalize it with the tangible things we say and do. This is where gut decisions come from. You know, sometimes you can give somebody all the facts and your figures, and they say, I know what all the facts and details say, but it just doesn't feel right. Why would we use that verb? It doesn't feel right. Because the part of the brain that controls decision-making doesn't control language. And the best we can muster up is, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Or sometimes you say you're leading with your heart or you're leading with your soul. Well, I hate to break it to you, those aren't other body parts controlling your behavior. It's all happening here in your limbic brain, the part of the brain that controls decision-making and not language. But if you don't know why you do what you do, and people respond to why you do what you do, then how will you ever get people to vote for you or buy something from you, or more importantly, be loyal and want to be a part of what it is that you do? Again, the goal is not just to sell people who need what you have. The goal is to sell to people who believe what you believe. The goal is not just to hire people who need a job. It's to hire people who believe what you believe. I always say that, you know, there's if you hire people just because they can do a job, they'll work for your money. But if you hire people who believe what you believe, they work for you with blood and sweat and tears. And nowhere else is there a better example of this than with the Wright brothers. Most people don't know about Samuel Pierpont Langley. And back in the early 20th century, the pursuit of powered man flight was like the dot-com of the day. Everybody was trying it. And Samuel Pierpont Langley had what we assume to be the recipe for success. I mean, even now, you ask people, why did your product or why did your company fail? And people always give you the same permutation of the same three things. Undercapitalized, the wrong people, bad market conditions. It's always the same three things. So let's explore that. Samuel Pierpont Langley was given $50,000 by the War Department to figure out this flying machine. Money was no problem. He held a seat at Harvard and worked at the Smithsonian and was extremely well connected. He knew all the big minds of the day. He hired the best minds money could find, and the market conditions were fantastic. The New York Times followed him around everywhere, and everyone was rooting for Langley. And how come we've never heard of Samuel Pierpont Langley? A few hundred miles away in Dayton, Ohio, Orville and Wilbur Wright. They had none of what we consider to be the recipe for success. They had no money. They paid for their dream with the proceeds from their bicycle shop. Not a single person on the Wright brothers' team had a college education, not even Orville or Wilbur. And the New York Times followed them around nowhere. The difference was Orville and Wilbur were driven by a cause, by a purpose, by a belief. They believed that if they could figure out this flying machine, it'll change the course of the world. Samuel Pierpont Langley was different. He wanted to be rich and he wanted to be famous. He was in pursuit of the result. He was in pursuit of the riches. And lo and behold, look what happened. The people who believed in the Wright brothers' dream worked with them with blood and sweat and tears. The others just worked for the paycheck. And they tell stories of how every time the Wright brothers went out, they would have to take 5 sets of parts because that's how many times they would crash before they came in for supper. And eventually, on December 17th, 1903, the Wright brothers took flight. And no one was there to even experience it. We found out about it a few days later. And further proof that Langley was motivated by the wrong thing, the day the Wright brothers took flight, he quit. He could have said, "That's an amazing discovery, guys, and I will improve upon your technology." But he didn't. He wasn't first. He didn't get rich. He didn't get famous. So he quit. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And if you talk about what you believe, you will attract those who believe what you believe.
All right, what'd you think of that video? Did you like it? Yeah. That video has had so much impact on my career in the last a few years. I watch it over and over again, get something different every time. I couldn't have said it better, so that's why I wanted to share it with you. Thoughts from you on how that affects your business or how you think that way? Cindy?
One of the things that I try to do myself and what I have my clients do, especially when they're sharing on social media, is always ask yourself the question, so what? Like, why is this important for anything that you do? You know, we do things sometimes out of habit, like you said earlier, but I think it's more important to say, so why would somebody care if I did this or share this, or why would this employee think that this is, you know, something that they should be doing? You really have to really put yourself out of you and into somebody else.
Excellent. And so let me just take a step further. I mean, from what we've been talking about, you know, what happened there? What Cindy's saying is, how do we see the world through their eyes? One of the best things I've ever heard, and I don't know who to give credit to, in sales training was, if you see the world through your customer's eyes, you'll see the way your customer buys. And I love that. See the world through your customer's eyes and see the way your customer buys. It's exactly what that's about, and that's exactly, thank you for sharing. Anybody else want to share? Yeah, if you don't mind, passing it down.
So my entire executive coaching is based in rooted in neuroscience, and so there's always a reason for why we do something or why we don't do something. It's always, the behavior is always driven by the limbic, and not always can we get in touch with it because it's subconscious, so it's right below what we can identify. So I encourage people, you know, whether it's in sales or not in sales, to really take a look at what is it that drives your behavior, because as soon as you can identify it, you can actually bring it to the surface and then change it.
Excellent. I know we have a lot of coaches in the room, and I'm sure that a lot of this is not new to you as to why. You know, when I look at this diagram, the why, how, and what, this is our comfort zone, isn't it? I mean, like he said, everybody knows in this room knows what they do. Most of us know how we do it. This is where we get uncomfortable, and that's why I love it. So my whole why, and that I want to sort of throw out at you, the why for everyone in this room, I think, should be this: customer. Why do we do what we do? It's for our customer. We need to become more customer focused, see the world through their eyes. So this next module is all about how do we become more customer focused? How do we start to think about the why of what we do? It starts with this. If I can take you on a bit of a tangent, here are some brands with whom I've had the pleasure of working over the last 25 years or so. Every one of these brands has one thing in common. What are they known for? Service, right? So get your left hand ready. Are you all in the customer service business? Absolutely. Absolutely not. I don't know who told you this, all right? But I led you down that road. I'm sorry. I don't believe you're in the customer service business anymore. And I want to prove it to you, because that's the first step in becoming more customer centric. Back in the 1980s, I get to work with a small company at that time called Nordstrom. Nordstrom sat their executives down and they said, what if we offered the most amazing, knock your socks off customer service that you can imagine when our customer has a problem? Now we sit here 30-something years later, we go, well, duh, that's what customer service is. But guess what? By the end of the 1980s, at least the turn to the 90s, we all caught up. I can prove it to you. It didn't matter what business you were in, what profession you were in. We were walking around saying we were going to solve our customers' problems beyond their expectations. That's what customer service was. Now it's the early 1990s. I get to work with a small car company by the name of Saturn, which is even smaller today. So shows how good my work is, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, Saturn makes their executives study the Nordstrom model. They said it's not good enough. What if we offered amazing, knock your socks off customer service all the time? Not just when our customer has a problem. We're going to offer it all the time. What happened? By the end of the 1990s, turn of the century, that's 13 years ago, guys, guess what? We all caught up. And that's where I find most organizations are today. We offer amazing customer service. But I got to tell you, things have changed. And if I can prove to you what's happening sort of out there and bring it in here, it can change the way you do business. Two more examples. Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts. Don't know if you know them or not, but Four Seasons, for the first time ever, was just ranked #1, tied in the world, #1 tied with Ritz-Carlton hotels for everything, from ambiance to food to service to price, and Starbucks. Everyone uses Starbucks. Anybody a Starbucks fan when you can get it? Oh, a few of you. Okay. So imagine for a minute I have a handful of coffee beans. Do you all see them? Yeah, it's getting late. Do you all see them? Absolutely, thank you. I need a coffee drinker. Who's a coffee drinker? Anybody? All right, would you take my beans, please? I've forgotten your first name.
MJ.
MJ, sit down, it's okay. MJ, you represent my McDonald's. Do you know how much you charge me for a supersized coffee at McDonald's?
McDonald's is probably $1.50.
About $1 to $1.50. Give me my beans back, MJ. You can throw them. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. All right, good. We got them. Now, I have these beans I just took from MJ at McDonald's. I'm going to take them over to Starbucks. I did my homework, and I found out that the beans I just took from MJ are a better bean. But for the entire handful, they cost about a nickel more. A nickel. Who is a Starbucks fan? Somebody? Here you go. Take my beans, Eric. You represent my Starbucks. How much do you charge me for supersized coffee at Starbucks? About $4, right? I was in Edmonton, Alberta a couple weeks ago, and a guy in Canada, and a guy said to me, in Canada, we don't call it Starbucks anymore. And I'm such a sucker. I said, you don't? He said, no, we call it $4. Just $4, that's all. Throw them back, Eric, because then I had the most amazing opportunity years ago to work with Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts worldwide on the South Pacific island of Bali. Somebody had to go, right? Yeah, beans in hand. Bob, take my beans. You represent my Four Seasons Hotel in Bali. How much do you think you charge me for a cup of coffee in the restaurant every morning in Bali? $8.25 for a cup of coffee. And I paid it every single morning. Why? And it wasn't because I was on an expense account. I know what you're thinking. Why would I pay that kind of money for a cup of coffee? I needed it. You're right, Bob, but you know what I forgot to tell you? At the gates of the Four Seasons Hotel, about 500-yard walk from the restaurant, is a McDonald's. I could have walked 500 yards and paid $1, $1.50. Instead, I chose to pay $8.25. Why? Convenience? Oh, it was pretty convenient to walk to that. Service, I heard you say. You know what? Service out in Monroeville, out at the McDonald's out there, they have a seniors program. They come and they greet you. They take you to the counter. They're happy people. The service is great. You can drop my beans, Bob. It's okay. Thank you. Yeah. No, it wasn't customer service. It was. Thank you. It was about the experience. My experience at the Four Seasons Hotel with Bob is far different than my experience with Eric over at Starbucks, than it's far different than my experience with MJ at McDonald's. We need to start thinking in terms of the customer experience. Why? Customer service isn't dead. Customer service is an integral part of the customer experience, but it's only part of it. Customer experience is, what's my customer's experience from the minute they make contact till the minute I'm done? And that involves more people than typically just us. We have to look at things from their perspective. And what happens is this. Back in 2010, the Gallup organization, the guys who do the polls, did a poll on engagement. Some of you have probably seen this before, and they found that 43% of Americans are engaged at what they do every day. That's pathetic. It means 57% of Americans come to work to get their check. Now, don't confuse engagement with satisfaction. Those 57%, a lot of them are very happy to get their check. They actually enjoy what they do and where they do it. They're just not engaged at what they do. And in our new book, Anticipate, Knowing What Customers Need Before They Do, what we've proven is that the more engaged the employees are, the better the experience for the customer. So our goal is to engage our people, internal and external. If that's true, we start driving this new message. It's not about customer service. See, some of us have big enough organizations that we have customer service people. And so our other people, even though we've told them it's all about customer service, they get back to their computers, their desks, wherever it is, and they go, yay, customer service, that's somebody else's job. But now we start driving the message of the experience through the organization that no matter what your contribution, part-time, full-time, doesn't matter what you do for the organization, you are part of the customer experience. They automatically start to become more engaged. See, it's a giant leap. I like to look at it this way. The leap is from customer service. That's a satisfied customer, and most of us are happy with that. We have hundreds of ways to measure satisfaction of our customers. I don't think there's any reason to do it. Why? Because I'm looking for a loyal external customer and an engaged internal customer. And the only way we can do that is making that leap to start thinking about customer experience. See, customer experience looks like this. It's about loyalty. If I want a loyal external customer, I say it's the optimal alignment of three things. First of all, it's your brand promise. What is it that you promise to the marketplace? Some of you are marketing people. You know this. What is my branding? But it's also combined with that customer's view of what you offer. That part we can't, or the value you offer, that part sometimes we can't control, combined with the third thing, which is your capability to deliver. And somewhere in the middle of that is what I call customer loyalty. See, I think that 5 characteristics of a loyal customer, if I could share them with you, are these. Number one, they buy consistently from us. They're loyal to us, if not exclusive to us. They tend to be eager adapter of your new offerings. They're less price sensitive, frequently recommend you to others, and actively promote your brand. The key is this: what do they all have in common? What's the common thread running through all 5 of those? Anybody? You? Yeah, yes, partially. Actually, more importantly to me anyway in business today is that every one of those is revenue driven. All that means is we want loyal customers because it's going to increase our bottom line. Isn't that true in all of your businesses? Sure. So if we're looking at loyalty, what we did in the book is we came up with these 10 points. We call it a 10-point customer framework. We're not going to go through them all. But the first point is what I call strategic drivers. Why do people do business with us? It's this. Why do people do business with us? And once we come up with this message of why we do what we do, why we get out of bed in the morning, that's our driver. That's our strategic driver for driving the entire business. It may be different than you've thought of for the last 20 years because we've always been good at what and how. Now we need to know why we do what we do. So the second part is this. How do we get everybody in the organization walking around saying, what is the, fill in the name of your organization, experience? Once everybody starts asking that, we start to become more customer-centric. Well, the way we do it is this third step. How do we shatter the stereotype of the experience our customer expects to have with us? Based on anything you do, by your title, by your industry, tell me what you do and I'll tell you that I have a stereotype of the experience I'm about to have. Your job is to figure out how do we shatter that stereotype every single time. Well, one way is to understand that every transaction with our customer cannot not be an experience. That's not great English, I know. But every transaction with our customer cannot not be an experience. So the question becomes, how random or how managed is the experience that you offer? The more managed the experience, the better the outcome for the customer. Let me give you an example. Starbucks. If you don't think it's not one of the most managed retail experiences you will ever have, you're kidding yourself. Do you know that they are required to, not asked to, they're required to grind coffee every X amount of minutes. Why? Because of the smell and sound. And they were the first food company to prove beyond scientifically that the combination of that sound and smell makes you think of one word. What is it? I heard it. Fresh. We don't know if it's fresh, Diane, but we think fresh. By the way, it is fresh. I've worked with them for a few years. But I will tell you that they now, because of the combination of that smell and sound, will pay 4 times the amount we will over at McDonald's for a cup of coffee. That's a managed experience. How about the fact that you will never sit in one of those overstuffed sofas or chairs at a Starbucks that has a hole in it? Do you know that they can lose their store if their furniture is worn? That's how managed the experience is. Now let me take you to the other side. We were lived in Dallas for many years before we moved to Pittsburgh. And we went back to Dallas not too long ago. My wife and I went out with friends that we have there, another couple, to a restaurant that my friend kept telling me that was the best restaurant in Dallas. He said that it's been open for a little while, it's brand new, you'll love it, blah, blah, blah. And we go to this restaurant, and we get there 10 to 8 for an 8 o'clock reservation, and we are seated at 8 o'clock. So I'm impressed already. When I tell you it was the best meal I've ever had, I'm not exaggerating. The food was incredible. At one point, the chef came out and he sat with us and he explained how our dishes were prepared. The manager checked on us a couple of times. It was great. I go outside after my dinner and I hand my valet ticket for my car to the valet guy, and 55 minutes later, my car arrives. Now, if you don't think that's not part of my experience, you're kidding yourself. And my poor wife, knowing what I do for a living, looks at me at that point and says, do not go back in that restaurant. I said, wait here, I'll be right back, right? So I go back into the restaurant, I find the manager, and I tell him, I've just written a book on this is what I speak about. And he said this, he said, Jeff, I am so sorry, but we have no control over that. We farm that out to somebody else. Oh, no, don't tell me that. And I'll tell you why. I have told, probably in the last year, I have told so many people in Dallas to go to that restaurant. The food is incredible. And then I finish with one word. What? No, one word. What is it? But your car is going to take 2 hours. By the way, the story gets longer the more I tell it, like a fish story, right? So here's the title of my new book. I don't know what it's about yet, but I have the title. What comes after the but? Because once we get our organization, I don't care what size you are, once we get everyone in the organization asking what comes after the but, we have to become 100% customer focused. They're great to do business with, but every time I call there, I get the best receptionist, but whatever comes after the but is when we start to become more focused. So if we start asking what comes after the but, I thought what I'd like you to do is take you through a bit of an exercise that I would love for you to do back at your organizations. It's a little tough to do here because we're all from different companies and different organizations, but if I can show you the premise and you can take it back, it can change the way you do business. It starts with a case history. MCMC is Mid-Columbia Medical Center. They're a hospital. They're based in the Dalles, Oregon, which is right outside of Portland, Oregon. They came to my partner, Bill Thomas, who I wrote the book with, who I co-authored the book with years ago, and they said, look, we want to turn healthcare on its ear. We have the opportunity, we've purchased property, we're going to build a new hospital, and we want to change healthcare and the way it's delivered. Help us with the customer experience, the patient experience. So the first thing that happened, I was sitting in the back as I watched the CEO come into the room, and he had all his bigwigs there, from head of surgery to vice president of operations, and he did this. He just walked up to, without saying a word, walked up to a flip chart, and he wrote this. Prisoner, patient. He said, what do they have in common? And I thought this would be maybe a 4 or 5 minute exercise. 20 minutes later, they were still adding to the... What do you think? Prisoner and patient. What did they say? What do they have in common? Small rooms. Small rooms. Thank you. What else? Can't leave if they want to. What else? The food is terrible. Institutionalized food. What else? Bad service, exactly. They're both issued standard, some kind of uniform when they arrive. They're both given a number when they arrive. And all of a sudden you see this aha happen in this group. Maybe the penal system has to do this, but we don't. So how do we turn healthcare on its ear? It's by starting to look at things a little differently. So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit in this exercise to sort of show you what I mean. When we started working with them, their mission statement was incredible. Now, some of you write mission statements. My background is in marketing. I used to write these things for organizations, and they're wonderful. How many of you have a mission statement for your company? All right, a few of you, right? Those of you that do have a mission statement, could anybody in your organization actually recite it? Probably not. It probably looks great up on the wall. See, this exercise is to sort of walk you through something completely different that no matter what your size, one person again to multinational, you can actually do this because I think there's vision, there's mission, and then there's declaration. And what's declaration? It's our declaration of the experience. What is our declaration to our customer? What is our declaration internal? It's unwritten. It's not up on the wall, but everybody in the organization knows what it is. So we're working with MCMC, and I'm going to skip to the end because I'm going to show you their declaration. Their declaration was fairly simple. It was this: to humanize, personalize, and demystify the healthcare experience. Personalize, demystify, and humanize the healthcare experience. What's the difference between that and that lengthy mission statement that they had, besides being shorter? What else is the difference? Memorable. It's memorable. Absolutely. Everybody in the organization knows it. From chief of surgery to janitorial staff, they know that those 3 words. But even more importantly, where's the focus? It's customer focus. It's patient focus. It's 100% about the patient. So what I'd like to do very quickly is sort of go through the exercise of how do you come up with your own declaration statement. It's fairly simple. The first step is this. I'd like you to take a piece of paper and answer this question. Identify the 3 biggest problems your customers would say they have in doing business with you. What are the 3 biggest problems your customers would say they have in doing business with you? All right, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like you to pair up. Would you all find a partner and that you can work with? Right beside you would be easy, so go ahead and do that first, and I'll tell you the instructions. Partners are better than 3s if you can avoid it. 3's okay, but it'll take a little longer. You can turn as well if you need to. All right? Good. Here's what I'd like you to do. So partner A is going to say their first challenge. Discuss it with the partner B. Tell them what it's about. Then what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to look over here, and I'd like you to pick a possible declaration word. It's a word that doesn't solve it. It just begins to solve it. That's all. One word. So you're going to say your first, the way it's going to work is you're going to say your first challenge, and then you're going to find a word that starts to solve it. Go on to your second challenge, a word that starts to solve it. And your third challenge, a word that starts to solve it, then switch. So each one of you is going to end up with 3 words, maybe 4 if you can't find just one. All right? But I'd like you to start just to think about that. So share it with your partner and find those 3 declaration words that solve it. And so you're going to tell the challenge, and as partners, you're going to help them come up with their word. These are only suggestions, by the way. So. Okay, come on back. Great, thank you. I hope you found that useful, at least to start talking about the experience and maybe what the challenges are, just to start to become more customer focused. So if I can ask, would one of you mind standing up and sort of sharing your 3 challenges and the 3 words that you came up with? Anybody volunteer?
Number 1, a lack of trust in the product that I market. Okay. They don't understand it.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I represent Legal Shield, and Legal Shield gives you the ability to talk to an attorney without worrying about the expense of hourly rates. Okay. To summarize that, so the word we came up with was persuade.
Persuade, why?
Well, well, she did my words for me.
Why do you think?
Well, because you have to use the power of persuasion to get them to change their way of thinking.
Excellent.
Right.
Excellent.
Okay. The second thing was I find that business owners have a lack of education on what it really takes to be a successful owner. They tend to think, oh, I can do this, I figure this out myself, not understanding that they need help.
Right.
Okay. The word we came up with was advocate.
Advocate, okay. Yeah, we'll do it as a verb. So,
Right.
Okay.
Right. And then the second one is, oh, I know somebody else that does what you do.
I already know somebody.
Which is right. So we came up with the term partner.
Partner.
So I can become their partner.
So I hope you'll understand that this is not, the reason it's not up on the wall, the reason it's not written is because this is temporary. I would hope that in any organization, I encourage them to do this every 6 months. Get their whole organization together and ask the question, what are the 3 problems our customers, because it's going to change. You're working on this right now, these 3 challenges. And hopefully that 6 months from now, there are 3 different challenges, or we can just check in and say, did we do what we had to do to solve that challenge? There are 3 biggest problems. See, the way it works in an organization, just so you know, is that flip charts are key. What I do with an organization, I say, what are the 3 biggest problems, write them down, and then we take a break. and I have, make sure there's little red or those orange little dots that you can buy at any office supply store. Have them up here and tell everybody on the honor system you get 3 dots. During the break, put your dots between the 3 most important problems you think we have right now at this organization. And everyone has to be involved at every level. If you're a very large organization, maybe it's by department. That's okay too. But the point is, you'll start to see groupings. And that's where you take your 3 biggest problems and start to work on this with the entire organization. See how this can work with a group. Would you share yours, please?
Yeah, the first obstacle with a client is the time that's involved.
So time involved to do what?
Over the course of a year, it might take somewhere between 200 and 500 hours of time to redevelop their brand identity.
Excellent. So what word did you come up with?
Expedite.
Expedite. Great word, sure. Tough thing to do, but if that's in the back of our minds, how do we expedite what we do without losing the quality of what we do as well? Sure.
The other huge obstacle is the cost involved.
Cost. It costs a lot of money. What word did you come up with?
Decommoditize.
Decommoditize. I love that word. I don't even know if it is a real word, by the way, but I love the word, decommoditize. Why? Because so many of us are in a commodities business, aren't we? I mean, we compete. How many of you have read the book Blue Ocean Strategy? Anybody? Great book, isn't it, Barbara? And I'll tell you why I love it, because the premise of the book is we all compete in red ocean. That's price, and that's, our people, our product, and that's bloody ocean. Blue ocean was, how do we create a blue ocean where we really don't have competition? And the best example in that book I can give you, and sorry to interrupt, but I loved, was that they used Cirque du Soleil. Cirque du Soleil, what is it? And you're all familiar with it, but it's really just a circus. Yeah. And they really said, how can we charge $150 for a ticket instead of $8 over at Barnum & Bailey, right? And it's a different concept for a circus. So and they created their own market. That's what I love about what you're saying, decommoditize what we do. Third one?
The third biggest challenge I face is the change that's required.
Okay. Change in whom or what?
The customer changing everything from the name and look of their business to how they deliver their services.
Excellent. Okay.
The best I could come up with was value, because I won't work with someone unless I can identify at least 1,000% return for them.
Okay, so I've also made up another word up there. It's called valueize, that's the verb, right? How do we valueize what we do so that it justifies what we're charging? Excellent. Thank you. Give them a hand. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. Anybody? One more. Anybody else? One more we'll share? In the back. Missy, if you pass it back.
Good afternoon. I'm a golf professional. One of the things I do is I give a lesson at one facility and sometimes at another one. So the word I came up with was consistency. Consistency. Right. The second thing I do is some days I work Mondays, some days I work weekends. So the word we came up with was systemize. Systematize, thank you.
That's a word either in English language, but yeah.
And the third problem I had was my processing, how I charge, how I collect the money, and how I respond, and the word we came up with, simplify.
Simplify, great, excellent. Give her a hand, thank you for doing that. Yeah, so you can start to see the exercise, and then what happens is we take this and we start to implement it, and what happens is, what I've seen in organizations, is that becomes the focus. But here's the thing, let me go back to MCMC for a minute. Remember, MCMCs was to humanize, personalize, and demystify the healthcare experience. We have no idea, or you have no idea, of the discussion that went behind that. That's the point. Yes, it's only 3 words. It seems pretty simple, but in an organization, that was an entire day's discussion before they came up with those 3 words. That's why this was very quick, and we can't really do it here because everybody doesn't work in the same organization. But what went behind it doesn't matter. It's what manifests itself because of it. So using MCMC, let me show you what happened. MCMC, first of all, looked at humanizing. They looked at the patient's room. They said, does every patient's room have to be sterile? They said in a hospital, a lot do, but there are other rooms that don't have to. So they have one floor that looks like this. That's a room at MCMC. Now, they consulted with Bed and Breakfast Association of America, and all I know is that I want to be sick in that room. Not only that, on that floor, their rooms don't have numbers, they have names. You know, names like Serenity, I got to tell you, you need to match the patient with the room, because if you put my mother-in-law in that room, you got big trouble. That's not, no, I'm kidding. I love my mother-in-law. The point is that it's just different than the experience you would expect. How about this? Then they went to the second word, and there were a lot of other examples, but the second word, remember, was personalized. Well, they took a look at those uniforms, those gowns that you get when you check in. They said, does every gown have to have Velcro in the back, have to be slit down the back? Instead, they put Velcro where needed, and they redesigned the gown. They hired a massage therapist, and the massage therapists go around, and for 5-6 minutes every single day, every patient gets an in-bed massage. A little different experience than typical. By the way, you're probably asking, how much does this cost? I don't know, but we'll go on from there. You have to charge for it. We have to valuize what we do. The third one, if you remember, was demystify. What I loved is they purchased a warehouse that was next door to the property they had already purchased, and they made it into a resource center, a library. When you basically have a loved one there, they take you, a nurse advocate takes you and educates you on the treatment, on the disease, whatever it is, and you become educated through this resource center. Some other things, very quickly, the food you all mentioned at one time. Well, they said to themselves, why do we have to have a candy striper deliver the food between 4:15 and 5:30? Right? Instead, they went to the system that's not unlike a lot of hotels today. They said that you can now check off, between 15-minute periods, when do you want your dinner delivered between 5 and 7? And they have 3 healthy choices, and again, depending on dietary restrictions and everything else, but they've hired chefs, and their menu has changed completely. They built a maze outside for spirituality. But my favorite one is this, and maybe you can't see what it is exactly, but it's a beautiful room with live plants, overstuffed chairs, and if you were to see out the window, a baby grand piano, and out the window, floor-to-ceiling windows, you would see the mountains. What do you think that is in the hospital? What would you guess? The waiting room, right? No, this is the nurse's break room. Well, they said to themselves, we're building anyway. Who's our busiest internal customer? And let's see if we can help them. So again, it's just about turning your business on its ear. One of the questions at the break was, that's great, but how do we get the tools from the company, the organization, to do this, right? So yeah, we have to have the right training and tools when it comes to the customer experience. And sometimes it's tough. We have to take little steps. I like to say, when we look at innovation, if you look at it like this, there are really, if it was on a spectrum, the spectrum at one end would be transformational. Somewhere on this end is what I call incremental. And in the middle, somewhere, is breakthrough. Most organizations, and especially when they get bigger, keep going for this. How do we transform our entire business? My whole theory is, how do we get incremental transformations along the way? Something that I have influence over. If I can't have the right tools to do that, I can certainly find the right tools, at least to incrementally change our business step by step. So when it comes to the tools, we're all different size organizations in this room. Many people have smaller businesses, more control. But the bigger we get, the less we control the experience. So we can only control what we can control. All right, everybody okay? Yes. Not yes, everybody okay? Absolutely. Perfect, so let's move on, because I have found the future of your organization. And no matter what you do for a living, if it doesn't work out, you can all deliver pizza. Well, that's the way I look at it. Anyway, let me explain. I don't love pizza. I think I got pizzaed out in college. I just don't love pizza. My family loves pizza. Well, I travel a lot. They get their share of pizza, no problem. About 3 years ago, my wife is stuck in traffic, and at 6 p.m., she calls me. She said, honey, order a pizza for the kids and me. There are leftovers in the refrigerator. But I said, only one problem. Since we've lived in Pittsburgh, I've never ordered a pizza. Who do we order pizza from? She said, we order from Mama Leone's Pizza in beautiful downtown Trafford, Pennsylvania. I don't know if anybody's ordered pizza from Mama Leone's Pizza, but I got to tell you, I call, and we've all had, even if you haven't ordered from them, I know we've all had the exact same experience. You know when you call for takeout and it's no more than a 10-year-old kid who answers the phone? And he's way too happy for even me? Here's how it sounded. Good evening, Mama Leone's Pizza. I'd like to welcome the Tobe household. Now understand something, my last name is Tobe, T-O-B-E, but when I get those calls, and I know you get them, 6 p.m., you're just sitting down for dinner, they want to sell you something, they never get my name right. Toby, Tobe, oh, I know when they hesitate, I'm in big trouble. Is this Mr. To be or not to be? So I'm impressed. Obviously, the kid has caller ID. I mean, how else would he know who's calling? But two things go through my mind. Either he's a great guesser, because he just guessed my name right, or my wife orders way too much pizza, is what I'm thinking. He said, I'd like to welcome the Tobe household. Who am I speaking to tonight? I said, this is Jeff Tobe. He said, oh, Mr. Tobe, you've never called before. So now two things go through my mind. I'm thinking database, right? He's got some kind of computer that tells him who's called or who hasn't called, or my wife orders way too much pizza. Yeah. I said, no, I haven't. He said, will it be the regular? Oh, now I'm into the game. So I want to challenge the kid. I said, you tell me what the regular is. He said, half cheese, half pepperoni. I said, that's exactly right. That's what my family eats. He said, now keep your perspective. I swear no more than 10 years old. He said, Mr. Tobe, can I ask you a personal question? I'm thinking, how personal can it be, for God's sake? He's 10 years old. I said, oh, okay. He said, have you fixed the light on your front porch? Whoa. Now two things go through my mind. Before some of you get too far, let me tell you what went through my mind. In my mind, this kid just aged like 7 years, and I picture him on my front porch with my then 17-year-old daughter, and the lights are burned out, right? Then I'm thinking, this isn't, he's not old enough. So the second thing, this is a conspiracy. Oh, my wife had been asking me to fix that stupid light for like 3 months prior to this. Somehow she got together with the pizza kid, right? And it's a conspiracy. So I said to him, why would you ask me that? And his answer blew me away. He said, because last time my driver tried to deliver a pizza to your house, apparently the light was burned out. He had a hard time reading the numbers on your address. I don't want your pizza to arrive cold. Have you fixed the light on your front porch? I said, no, but I'll be standing there with a flashlight when you get here, right? If you'll excuse the pun when we're talking about pizza, there are 3 major ingredients to this module. Number 1, it's not about customer service anymore. It's about the customer experience, from the minute they make contact till the minute they're done. Number 2, it's about shattering the stereotype of the experience your customer expects to have with you. This is not the experience you would expect to have with a pizza place. My kids tell me it's not even good pizza. But we wouldn't order from anybody else because of number 3, understanding our customer better than anybody else. And then let me throw this in. Then it's working with them in a way in which they need to be worked with, not a way in which we've been used to working with them. Let me say that again. If it's from their perspective, if we're becoming customer-centric, it's about working with our customers in a way in which they need to be worked with, not a way in which we've been used to working with them. Everybody okay? Absolutely. You guys are doing great.